Well, guys, MakerDAO is officially saying that they're going to be forking Solana and making their own app chain based on Solana's codebase. Insane. We're going to talk about what MakerDAO is, why this whole situation is happening, and maybe some potential implications and what the community is saying. Because this is actually some pretty big news out of the Ethereum ecosystem and broader crypto ecosystem as well. For starters, just in case you guys don't know, MakerDAO is actually one of DeFi's biggest protocols currently, with about $5 billion in TVL. Of course, mostly just on Ethereum, actually, according to DeFi Llama. It literally is, practically crypto's third biggest protocol. So for them to make the jump from an Ethereum general-based, obviously chain to their own app chain based on Solana is just like literally like kind of a shout out of left field. You can, and funny enough, actually, for more context for people who don't know, this is actually part of MakerDAO's, essentially what they're calling Endgame, which is pretty much a major update to the MakerDAO, protocol or ecosystem, I guess you could say, which will hopefully enable the DAI supply to grow to more than $100 billion within 3 years. That's kind of the short-term objective of it. 100 billion DAI, I should say, which is insane. I think the current amount of DAI is nowhere near that. So some pretty big goals they're trying to hit, and pretty much them essentially exploring this fork of Solana, which they would call the NewChain, interesting name, would pretty much be the fifth phase of this endgame. And they say it here, and I can kind of read it verbatim. The fifth and final phase of Endgame is the complete reimplementation of the entire Maker protocol, built natively on a new standalone blockchain, codenamed NewChain. And you can read, of course, all about the 5 phases here. They put a link. And of course, they mentioned that this is a long-term project, which will at least likely take 3 years, if not longer, before it's realized. So to be clear, they're saying 3 years down the line, they hope to have this new chain essentially fully implemented. And I think something to be clear here that we should probably make sure that, it's understood now that they're exploring it, right? I'm sure part of low-key, I wouldn't be surprised if this dude, Rune, who initially put out the tweet earlier on Twitter, kind of just said this to get a bunch of people kind of talking about it, which it worked. A lot of people are talking about it now. But the other thing I actually want to talk about here too is that they also have Cosmos as another main contender. I know a lot of you guys like Cosmos, so I figured I'd throw this in there as well. But it seems like, they're really valuing Solana for a couple things. Its longevity, I think, is what they had mentioned, the technical quality, and I guess the fact that literally the FTX situation was actually part of it. The fact that the ecosystem itself was able to sustain that, that big of a blow with FTX going down and still be, around, essentially, despite all of that stuff. There's a couple things I think I want to bring up. Obviously, the biggest thing was that there's a lot of backlash from people in the Ethereum community and a lot of people, in Solana saying, oh, that's great, because obviously it's kind of a validation thing. But there's actually one guy, David Mihal. Shout outs to David, of course. I would call him more of an Ethereum guy. But he actually said here that, and I'll kind of talk about it here. He's not saying that one approach is better than the others, but generally chains will prefer the predictability and security of Ethereum, generally, right? But some protocols may feel that full sovereignty is worth the decrease in security, and it seems like Maker in this case is starting to lean that way. And this is, of course, as opposed to them just launching an L2 on Ethereum. So there's definitely an argument to be had about which chain is right for their use case, because it's very clear that as a Ethereum-based project, it's a pretty big leap to go from one chain to essentially just making your own app chain, right? And I don't know, it's while some people took it certain ways, most people from the Ethereum community not so well, people from the Solana community very well. We actually have Vitalik also coming into the fold here. Apparently, dumping his Maker. It sounds like right after realizing what I guess Rune had said on Twitter, and I think he had been holding it for about 2 years or so. So it's just kind of funny that Vitalik's watching. He's always watching. But I want to give you guys my thoughts generally. So I think for the most part, you guys know me, right? I'm a big fan of L2s, obviously Arbitrum specifically, but without getting too much into the L2 stuff, I think it's just they're kind of hitting on all the problems that is wrong with having your own chain in the first place, right? So number one, you need to start decentralizing from the very beginning. You're starting from square one when you make your own chain, and I think where David Mihal said, and I think what he said is so valuable here. They are sacrificing on decentralization for their own, I guess, customizability and sovereignty of their own chain, which obviously is a very deliberate decision that they're making, which honestly surprised me. Because to me, if you want $100 billion DAI minted within 3 years, you're going to want people to trust the chain that you're using, and I don't think a lot of people are going to trust their own app chain that they're starting from the beginning decentralizing. Because again, they're not using the Solana chain. They're not forking they're not, like when you fork Solana, you're not forking the validators, right? Like you need to get new validators to validate your chain. So you're pretty much, while you may be using a chain that you could say has been around for a little while now, you still need to decentralize it, right? The other thing, second thing, this is kind of more towards the Solana community, is that there really is no value accrual to the Sol asset, right? Like I don't think they're going to be using Sol as their native currency. They're probably going to be using Maker as it. And as far as I'm concerned, they're literally just going to fork it and make their own chain. So, obviously for the Solana community, this is a very good boon in terms of validation that, hey, that the tech seems to work. It seems to be, kind of something that will last a while. And industry leaders from Ethereum are even choosing to use it instead of an L2. So, while there is no straight up value accrual to Sol, at least it doesn't seem like there will be. I'll be honest with you, dude. It's a great win for the Solana community. I mean, those guys have been down only for a little while. So, shout outs to them. And the third thing that I think is most important is that this is years away. As you heard me mention, they want to hit this goal, or they actually want to be able to implement this chain within 3 years, they said. 3 years or more. And 3 years in crypto is insane. 3 years ago, it was 2020. I think that was right before the bull market, right? So, like 3 years is a long time in crypto. If you ask me, I don't think they're probably not gonna fork Solana. I think they're probably gonna do something else, to be honest with you. Because the thing is that like this is years away. Again, they said that they're exploring the fork. So it's definitely possible they change their minds between now and then. But it's impressive, man. I gotta admit, like the fact that they're really, the fact that they think that making their own chain with new trust assumptions, with all these new things, is gonna help them scale more than they have so far is very, very interesting to me. And who knows, maybe they'll be the first protocol to pull it off. But I don't think any project has done that yet. DYDX obviously is moving from an L2 previously based on the Starknet framework to their own Cosmos chain now, their own Cosmos app chain. So we'll see how that works. But I think thus far that they've actually lost TVL because of it, right? People trust Ethereum a lot more. People will trust an Ethereum L2 a lot more than a new app chain is what I've seen. And it's honestly a really, really big, important deal when we're not only talking about users, we're talking about exchanges, like centralized providers that provide the onboarding to these places, because most of them are not going to trust some random chain that gets listed. A MakerDAO, of course, is a really, really known name, but it's still going to be a new chain. It's still going to have its own security issues and whatnot. So anyways, that being said, those are my thoughts. I thought it was a really interesting topic, so I figured I'd bring it up. What do you guys think? Do you think it's a good idea that they're exploring Solana to make a fork of it? Do you think that they should be using L2? Should they be using the Cosmos kind of SDK? What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. I'll catch you guys in the next one, all right? Peace out.